What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale coming at you with my certified, fantabulous thermonuclear AF co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. We are here to wrap up, I still can't talk, our playoff predictions with the final two series, one in the East, one in the West, excuse me. And before we get to that, though, we'll also maybe at the end be talking some Golden State Warriors. I don't know, some stuff happened with them earlier this week. They missed the playoffs. That's what happened. So we're going to talk about their future a little bit. But first and foremost, before we get to our first series, Grant, how the heck are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I am ready to wrap off and wrap on. And that would have worked. Let's wrap on these playoff series. We got some 1 versus 8s to talk about. Let's go to the Western Conference 1 versus 8. We have the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the play-in surviving New Orleans Pelicans, who are going to be short a certain player named Zion Williamson that really might have posed some problems for a thin, not super physical inside Oklahoma City Thunder team. So I think we maybe start there with the fact that the guy that maybe could have, not just because he's New Orleans' best player, but the downhill attacks, the physicality, the force, you could really talk yourself into Zion having been like dominating some stretches of this series, right? Like that I think was on the table, but with the hamstring, he's probably going to be out for most or all.
And even if he's not, as we're recording this, he hasn't been ruled out as far as we know.
But it'll be limited.
Yeah, the hamstring is like a pretty, and just the look on his face after we talked about this on the previous pod, when like he felt it against the Lakers, just it makes you incredibly uneasy.
Fully healthy, Zion fully healthy. I mean, obviously that changes who we're picking in this series, or I mean, it changes like the duration of the series. Would it give you any real pause? We'll get into the more details, but like, would you be like thinking like, I don't know, New Orleans is looking kind of frisky, like they could?
I would say just because of their ability, if they wanted to hit the offensive glass with size and physicality and make that kind of a Jonas Valanciunas series, I don't know if they could necessarily do that on the defensive end. The way he's been playing, though, and are you banking on Brandon Ingram getting back to what he was pre-injury? The way Zion was defending, coupled with Herb Jones being able to play Trey Murphy, it would have just been interesting to see them go up against Oklahoma City, because this is another team that's going to get prided on going downhill. They don't space the floor nearly as well because they don't have the shooters, but Oklahoma City's offense is efficient enough to where they can ensure their defense gets set. But like the Pelicans, if they're going to be able to board OKC's misses, like they're going to be able to get out and run. Again, this is all with Zion on the court, and it's just there's no solution to Zion, but a team that is like who is the best option to defend Zion Williamson on the Thunder? It's probably J-Dub. And then if it's not him, is it like Big J Will?
It's one of them. It's got, I think you start with J-Dub.
It's just like, but Dort is just so small relative to Zion. He's still built like a Mack truck, but
yeah, I think, by the way, so Zion's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, which is always like, well, okay. So that's like the absolute soonest we could say he's still a week away or something like that. That's May 1st. That's game 5, give or take. So like, we're definitely not getting him for the first 4 games unless something dramatic changes. And like the series may not go much longer than that. I think like, let's talk about a couple other things that struck me here. Like you mentioned it. I do like the Pelicans' length on the perimeter. You put Herb out there. You could put Dyson Daniels, Murphy, Ingram, varying levels of quality.
That's the solution without Zion, right? Is we need a bunch of those minutes with those 3 wings together, kind of the offensive creation aspect be damned.
Yeah, I think that's right. And like, I think you probably have to play McCollum just, he's going to have to play a ton just for the offensive creation. But like, I think to hold up against the Thunder there, between Williams and between SGA, like you got to have multiple rangy, switchable wing defenders out there just to kind of hang tight. And like, Valanciunas banging around against Chet in the paint. I think there's a way there.
What about when Chet's outside the paint?
If he's outside the paint, we got real big problems. And that's why
it comes back to where would you hide? It's like you need the Giddey or the Dort situation, I guess, and bank on them missing shots.
It's one of those where, like, if you're the Thunder and you just choose not to play Giddey at all because you don't want to,
He's been playing too well for
that
them to
right.
even.
But that's an option that a team as good as the Thunder have. Like, we could, yeah, we don't need him. He's been great, but like we could just take this option off the table that the Pelicans might exploit, and it's not going to hurt the bottom
I mean,
line.
I guess, yeah. I mean, he was already, what was he post All-Star break at, about 25 minutes per game? So yanking that down. And it's funny that we view, what did he shoot? 36% from three post All-Star break. It's just like,
Right.
dude was lights out.
That's how you hide the guy. Let's see. What else do we have? Yeah,
This series, I wish Zion, I mean, duh.
right.
Becomes so much more interesting if he's on. I do think, I hope Willie Green gets, like, because it's the Thunder and they're not, like, they have size and length, but they don't have girth.
Mhm.
Willie Green's got to get, like, fucking kooky with his lineup. Like, I'm talking Dyson Daniels at the 5 shit. Like, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones. Let's go Dyson, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, Trey Murphy. Who's the other? We just throw Najee Marshall in there. Is he
Sure. I think Valanciunas we've just said is like maybe an advantage on one end, like sort of kind of, but a huge disadvantage on the other. I think you probably will see a ton of Nance. I don't think even he as a switchable guy is enough to, like, the Thunder's drive and kick, like, whirlwind thing is going to either exploit Valanciunas as a rim protector or Nance as a switch defender. Like, I just don't know how you stop the parade of layups / like 6 to 8 foot shots. Like, I just don't know where.
healthy Zion, maybe.
Right, healthy Zion maybe, or healthy Zion means that as those get scored, they just score on the other end because he barrels down the lane and makes layups. But it's hard to see a real clear, like, okay, the Pelicans can go to this on one end or the other. That feels like a solve, for what the Thunder want to do, because the Thunder will space them out. They'll exploit whether you have size or speed. Like, it's just, I just don't know what the obvious, like, the Pelicans have this advantage is.
I am willing to give a Zionless Pelicans one game, though, just because of the pressure they can put on 3-point shooters. And we've seen, and this kind of helped. I'm not saying Victor Wembanyama would have been rookie of the year anyway, just playing 3/4 of the season. Amazing. Chet Holmgren wasn't shooting as well from 3 after the All-Star break. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went through one of his above the break troughs. And if Giddey and or Dort isn't knocking down their shots in certain games when they're wide open, things get interesting. So I trust, even without Zion, the Pelicans defense in that regard, to where if they can really force the Thunder into becoming an inside the arc team, I don't know if that necessarily benefits them, but they can at least put enough pressure and stress on Oklahoma City shooters.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I got the Thunder in 5 too. It's another one that feels like 4 is likelier than 6. Just the Zion thing, it sucks. There's so many of these where it's just a key guy's not there, and it just completely makes any analysis beyond that fact for the series feel like we're just grasping at stuff. It's a shame.
This is kind of like is this kind of the proxy for Pacers Bucks in the East, where Giannis is missing, and it's like the series would be completely, it's just flip-flop because the Pelicans never would have been favored even if Zion was healthy.
That's true. But I mean, we would have had a much longer conversation if Zion were healthy, I think. It would have been much more favorable to New Orleans. Let's go to the East now here, where we have the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. Yet again, we have an injury, like several other series we've talked about, that I think we have to start with. Jimmy Butler's got a knee. It's several weeks, I believe, was the phrasing. So we're talking,
it's significant too. When it's significant MCL injury, that's always harrowing. Yeah,
I feel like he's unlikely to play at all, right? Like, of all the injuries, like, we think Giannis might show up at some point in the series. Obviously Embiid is healthy. Some of these other injury issues, Kawhi, we think is probably going to show up in that Clipper series, but this one just,
it seems like Zion has a better chance of making it into would have had a better chance of making it into a hypothetical Pelicans Thunder matchup than Butler has of getting into this matchup with the Celtics.
And again, it's a shame because, like, the Heat yet again survived, and here they are having emerged from the play-in, Oh, let's run it back. Let's upset
With their
another
defense looking hellacious. Yeah.
defense looking hellacious. Like I now trust everyone on the roster again. I trust Caleb Martin. I trust Haywood Highsmith, Nikola Jovic. Yeah, get him out there.
Dude's been defending his butt off too. Where she's like,
they did the thing again. I believe in everyone on that roster all of a sudden. I can't believe I ever thought Gabe Vincent and Max Strus mattered. But like, no, Jimmy is just, this offense sucks as it is. And you can't just say, oh, Tyler Hero's back, so that solved. Like, no, without Butler, a team that really struggles to create shots, which they did against the Sixers, by the way, with Butler for like a healthy quarter. I don't see the offense. That's the whole thing. And we haven't even said a word about the Celtics yet, which
we need to frame it this way. What is there even a pathway to the Celtics realistically losing this series when we know that Jimmy Butler isn't going to be in it? Because the thing that you harp on with Boston is that the offense can bog down when it matters most, when you're just looking at in those crunch time situations. And they wound up finishing the year. And so let's go really high stakes here. They have the lead, or it's a tie game. It's a one possession game in the final 3 minutes. Would you care to guess where they finished in offensive efficiency, points scored per possession in those?
I'll say 17th.
They were 21st. So that's not great. And like if Miami busts out zone against them, which here's an interesting question that I feel like I'm maybe not smart enough to answer. Does zone become more or less important without Jimmy Butler?
Oh, that's interesting. Well,
it definitely becomes less effective because like he could just fly into blind spots and force turnovers.
What do you have, like 5 steals or something before he got hurt?
Against low, wasn't it 12?
Yeah, it was just like every time someone turned their back to him, he was just picking the pocket and going the other way. I guess I would say like it matters. I don't know. It might matter more just because you need every possible like edge you can get. And if that happens to work, like, look, if you stop the Celtics from getting Porzingis switched onto a smaller guy and posting up and being the best post up guy in the league, then that's helpful. Like maybe you just take that out, take that card out of the Celtics' hands. They still have, they have plenty of options, but like that's one thing. And maybe by playing zone, you force a lot more of the stagnant, like kicking it around the perimeter, waiting for a Celtic guy to take 7 dribbles and pull.
Like this season, it just feels like a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum or a Derek White will just bust through it.
Yeah. I mean, like it's just realistically, even if the zone really does flummox the Celtics and they have just some ugly quarters or whatever, the Heat are going to just the Heat. Well, and the Heat are going to have some quarters where they score like 17 points. Because they just,
I thought you were going to say 7, and I was going to be like, yeah, you might.
Yeah, no, I was as I was like getting that sentence, I was like, what's a number that's like bad, but I don't know where the offense comes from, other than like Tyler Hero running hot, or if Bam Adebayo just, I don't know.
Terry Rozier we've seen him put up.
Yeah,
you know what's fun about this series? Not to say that there's a silver lining to no Jimmy Butler just because they're in it, but that you're just gonna have like the Haywood Highsmith 25-point game or something.
That guy hit a floater against the Sixers in that first play-in game that I was just like, I forget the exact circumstances, but it was insane that he took it and he made it. And it was like, that seems right. The Heat, just like everybody that suits up for the Heat is like so empowered to just take the difficult, like high stakes shot. And everybody's like, yeah, I'm good with that. Cause we're ready.
It will be interesting if like, whether it's Bam, Zone, Committee, Jaime Jaquez, Caleb Martin, if just Jason Tatum has a bad game, what kind of trickle-down effect does that have on Boston? But like the talent is just,
it's tough.
If Boston drops, like just comes out, lays an egg, all that rest, and drops game 1, like the discourse is going to be so inflammatory, and they'll probably have earned it because this is a series that they should win either in 4 or like all 4 of their victories should probably be handed. Like it's a 5-game gentleman sweep, but like none of the victories they had were ever really close.
I think it has to be a sweep because like you're the number 1 seed. You had you sewed up the conference in like early March. You're just far and away better than everyone. You're playing the 8th seed that doesn't have its best player. Like, what are we doing if we're not sweeping this series? Like that's, I would say like, it won't matter. Boston's going to win it, but like, it'll almost, I guess is maybe too much, not enough respect for the Heat or whatever, but like you have to sweep the series if you're Boston. You have to just like leave no doubt whatsoever.
This playoff bracket broke right for them. Not that they needed it, but I think going up against Cleveland or Orlando after this kind of beats like a Philly with Embiid or having to go up against New York type or Milwaukee with Giannis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it'll be nice. I mean, we're already looking ahead, but we should like you'll get as the Celtics, you'll get a test like defensively because you're getting Cleveland or Orlando in the second round, and so like you're gonna this is your warm up series against a undermanned Heat team that just wasn't as good during the year as either of those teams. And now like if you get Orlando, for example, which we both think Cleveland's coming out of that series, but like then you'll really kind of get like that's your like intense warm up. Like now you're really ramping up for like the heavy lift coming up.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube. Just thumbs up, positive comments, all that stuff helps grow the podcast. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Join our Discord. The links for how to do that in the YouTube and podcast description, as are the links to check out our merch. That's going to do it. Shout out Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.